Most creators dream of going full-time, but what about going full-time in the industry? iamBrandon found a job that allowed him to lean into his creativity and his passion around video games. Listen in on the conversation while we deep dive into Brandon's journey.
Something about working in games and being around like the rush of like a game about to launch and like you're getting everything together with like your team and it's like getting everything together. Like this is the first time in a long time that I was like really excited to work on a project like this. I sat there and was playing through the game and I'm like, this game is really actually pretty good. Like I'm not just saying that because I work for this company. Like this game is really, really good. So it's been really cool to see like a lot of feedback that like I put in and like other people have put in that they're actually putting into the game too as well. So that's one really cool about working with the indie studios because like we can literally do whatever we want. Like we don't have to worry about like the higher ups like being mad if we decide to do something wild and kooky.
How did you get into the game industry in the first place?
Well, luckily for me, I was a streamer. I was because I was already streaming on Twitch at the time and I was doing a lot of social media like work for a while. This was like before like social media was like big with brands and stuff like that. I was working for the Illinois lottery. So basically I was the person who was on Facebook and Twitter like posting the numbers of like the winning numbers of the day for the lottery. You know, I was doing it for a job, but it was definitely for experience as well. At the time, like I was using XSplit a lot for a lot of my broadcasting and all that kind of stuff. I know they were talking about like looking for somebody who was like in the US who would like be able to like work for them and like do a lot of their social media and support like in the US. So I decided to send in my resume and I remember they like sent me an email talking about like, hey, like we'd love to have an interview with you. So I snuck downstairs of my job and I did this interview and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna take a quick like lunch. I'll be back in like an hour. And I was downstairs doing the interview and that was very bad of me to do. But
I bet the Illinois lottery folks are listening to this pod and they're like,
gonna
damn
be so
it,
bad.
I knew something was up.
And so I was doing the interview on the phone downstairs. You know, I didn't hear back from them. This was around the time I just gotten partnered on Twitch, like, and then the next day they had called me back and they're like, hey, yeah, we would love for you to join us here at XSplit. And I was like, oh, I guess my life has now changed. I'm now a Twitch partner and now I'm working in the gaming space. I worked for XSplit for about a year and then that was when I decided that I did want to start working in game development more. That's when I went to Versus Evil and that was like my very first experience like working in games.
I don't know if you know, do you know Good Game Bro? But he was really doing well as a creator and I was like, dude, why don't you just pack this in? Like you've got so much going for you as a creator. And he's like, yeah man, but I have a family and like I love what I do in working for 2K and I love being a creator and like I don't want to give either up and the security and the stability
that too
just makes it like I don't have to worry. I can just be free and as you said, like it made for him a better mindset. Like he could just do both. And it's so interesting because I'm like, you could Phil send it but then that's also like scary as hell.
Yeah, that is the scariest thing and that's why I decided to kind of branch off and try to find a job in the industry as well. So I would not run into that because I never want to be like so unsure of where my money's coming from or when can I pay my next bill, especially with content creation because it's so up and down and people come in and out and like you can gain support, you can lose support, or like, you know, you never know what could happen. It's more relaxing to me to just be able to like create content and like have fun with it and not worry about like, oh, like maybe that's not hitting as it should, or like I don't have like 1,000 subscribers or 1,000 followers off of this. You know, like when I see the successes of just like things I put out there and it does hit, it just feels that much better too, especially when it's like I'm not depending on it to hit.
Imposter syndrome that you had, how did you overcome that?
What helped me out a lot was because I had to remember of why I was hired in the first place. So it was not like, oh, I'm just here because like I'm Brandon, whatever, I'm a Twitcher, and like I was hired because of like what I was bringing to the table. I remember like my last my last event that I did with like Versus Evil when I was like going somewhere else, and I was like sitting there and I was like looking back all the stuff I did with them, and I was just like, wow, like I came up with these wild, crazy ideas that I would not have like ever thought of if I didn't do content creation, which always has helped me with my creativity.
I personally am not a fan of cancel culture. Like I'm just not, and we have to learn from our mistakes and get better and better and get better. I hope that's what everyone kind of thinks, or at least I'd like to give people the opportunity to get better. What could Nick do, if anything, or is it just gonna blow? Like he's gonna be like a month and goes by, and this is like one of the cycles. Like, what do you think?
Oh, I feel like he's gonna be fine. I feel like he'll probably like lose some support in like some ways, like for small, but I don't think it's gonna be enough that he'll lose his entire platform for it. Me personally, I don't really care to change people's ideas about that if they already feel like that. If it was like he legitimately like wanted to understand, then yeah, like reach out to somebody. Like there's plenty of us out here where you could talk to us. In the past, I've dealt with so many different creators. Obviously, I'm not gonna name them, who are like top ones who like when it's come to situations like this, when I have personally tried to talk to them about like, hey, let me explain to you of like how this looks from this perspective from someone who is like, you know, you're talking with. I think if you are willing to listen, like there are people who are willing to educate, and some people are just who may not have ever grown up with someone who is LGBT or anything like that, or just may not understand the implications of like some things that you say that are really harmful. I deal with it all the time, you know. I deal with people being hateful. Like I dealt with it last night. Someone came out of nowhere who on Twitter just was like, sent me this Bible verse and basically was like, you could turn back to religion. I was like, you are the reason why I'm not with that. It's something that I will always have to deal with as, you know, who I am. Yeah, I'd rather spend my time on people who are willing to learn, who may not understand, because I like, trust me, like I don't know all of like everybody like in the communities, like how they had to deal with life, and that's how I learn. And a lot of my friends who are within the community who like maybe transgender or lesbian or bisexual, and like I don't know what they deal with, and I learn a lot from them. Allow yourself to learn, because like I feel like we could always learn something. Every day is a life lesson in some kind of way, you know?
You strike me as someone who's like very true to you. If someone's really trying to find themselves as a creator, is there anything you'd share with them? Because it feels like you're often chasing views and it's like in this niche and you're like, oh, I got to create this, and you start to lose a sense of yourself. Is there any perspective you'd give to a creator who's navigating that?
I feel like if you're very true to yourself and you really like try to do the things that you want to do, it will really come out and show your passions. Like 2 years ago, I wanted to learn how to DJ, and I was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna try this experience on Twitch and like see how it works. And like my first kind of figurings out of like how to work the DJ decks and stuff like that was all on Twitch, and like my learning process of how to do that was all on Twitch. That was my first audience, was like, you know, people on Twitch who would like come by, and like I couldn't see their reactions. I didn't know, like, so that was always like the big thing for me, because I was like, I'm playing this music, but I don't know if people are actually liking it. I don't know.
They've got it on mute.
Yeah, I was like, do they have on mute? Like, do they have on mute?
Cheering you on, they're like clapping.
I have no idea. Like I will see emojis in like the chat. I'm like, I think that's good. I hope so. Once I started doing it like live in person, it did translate into seeing people's reactions, and like I really learned that I love to perform, and seeing people like really excited to like dance to the music that I play, and then being able to like do a really good job, and like to see how far I've come. Like I'm playing my very first music festival next Sunday, and awesome. And I started learning how to DJ on Twitch 2 years ago. So it's like it's really wild. It's really wild to see like from the computer screen to a stage. Something I just never, I don't know. It's always weird seeing my name in a flyer. I'm like, oh, I'm not just a Twitch streamer anymore.
Is there any advice you'd have on just working with brands in that process of like helping the brand see your vision, but then, you know, the brands kind of really firm on their guidelines?
A great example from like a brand who really knew me well that I was working with was like Amazon Luna, where basically they knew I DJ'd, and so they tried to incorporate a lot of stuff that like I already was doing. They knew I was like a retro collector, so they like implemented like, hey, let's do some retro like activations with you. So that was pretty cool. And then like we were like having that back and forth. I think if you have that great dialogue with the brand, that's gonna be perfect, especially explaining like your creativity so they understand it more. That's why, like, you know, sponsors go after, you know, creators, because they want their creativity to show to their audience like what makes them different, to have their audience want to buy their product. So if a brand is not up for that, then they are not a brand for you.
And it's a challenge, because like, I can see like creators go, well, it's a paycheck, it's experience, but you also just really need to know what you're getting into, because I've seen some horror stories where it's like, it's $300 for this video.
Like I've had to turn certain activations where it was just like the brand just didn't know what they wanted, and so they were trying to pull it out of me, and I was like, if you don't know what you want, I don't know what I could do for you. So like, yeah, it's kind of like a give or take, and I guess it depends on the situation. But if it's like a brand is basically trying to have you create their entire activation, that is also just like, I pulled out of that too. I'm just like, yeah, I can't do that. Like it was a lot of money, but it wasn't worth me trying to create their own activation for them. And then if I end up doing it and they don't like it, then it's on me.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give our guest a follow in the links down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and also subscribe for more content on how to turn your passion into a career. Until next time, we'll see you then.